She was just a maid, but she knew everything, and you will not believe what happened next. The greatest secrets are often kept by those we never bother to see. To the world, the Oladele residence was a monument to success. But to Adunni, the housekeeper, it was a house of cards. From her small neat room, she was the silent witness to every lie, every hidden glance, and every quiet hypocrisy that built their perfect life. Mr. Oladele was the man of status. With important phone calls and expensive cars, his wife, Madame Damilola, had a wardrobe of designer handbags, weekly spa treatments, appointments, and a voice that could shift from pleasant to sharp in an instant. Adunni was paid to be an observer, a silent presence. She polished the silver, washed the silk sheets, and prepared the meals. She was a ghost in their lives, and they rarely looked in her eye. But Adunni saw everything. She noticed how Mr. Oladele's smile vanished the moment he ended the call with his wife. She saw the way Madame Damilola's gaze would linger on their young, handsome driver, Femi. Adunni's silence was a matter of survival. The money she sent back to her village paid for her son's schooling and her sick mother's medical bills. She endured the constant criticism, whether about her cooking or her cleaning. The secrets started to pile up. It began with late-night whispers on Madame Damilola's phone. One afternoon, while polishing the banister, Adunni saw Madame Damilola and Femi in a tense private embrace through a slightly open door. They broke apart quickly, but the image was seared into Adunni's mind. She said nothing and simply returned to her work. A few days later, while doing laundry, Adunni found a folded note in the pocket of his silk blouse. It was an intimate message from Femi. She quickly took it and hid it in a small box under her bed. Adunni was not also blind to Mr. Oladele's behavior either. He often took hushed phone calls and would come home smelling of a perfume that wasn't his wife's. One evening, while cleaning his study, she found a small elegant gold earring on his desk. It was an expensive piece that did not belong to Madame Damilola, whose jewelry was always bold. Adunni wrapped the earring in tissue and added it to her collection of secrets. One day, as Adunni walked by the study, Mr. Oladele's phone rang. He was at his desk, and a smile formed on his face as he answered. "Hello, my love," he said in a low, warm tone. Adunni had never heard him use this word before. "How are you, Tola? Are the children doing well?" "I will visit you all soon. I miss you guys so much. Just be patient." Adunni froze at that moment, her hand still on the bookshelf. The mention of Tola and the children confirmed her suspicion. The earrings, the perfumes, they were not just random occurrences. There was another family, and Madame Damilola was unaware. Mr. Oladele finished the call, his face still holding the soft, happy expression, and he did not notice that Adunni was standing there. She calmly returned to her work, her face a blank mask, and she now knew that both her employers were living double lives. The following week, while dusting the bookshelf, Adunni found a small laminated photo card. It showed Mr. Oladele with a smiling woman and two young children. One afternoon, Adunni was polishing the living room furniture when she overheard a conversation between her employers. "Oladele, that driver of yours, Femi, is so rude," Madame Damilola complained. "He drove over a pothole and almost made me spill my coffee. He has no respect." Mr. Oladele looked up from his newspaper, a frown on his face. "What? He disrespected you? I won't have it. I'll fire him." Adunni, pretending to polish a table leg, kept her head down, and she sensed Madame Damilola's complaint was a calculated performance. Later that evening, after Mr. Oladele had gone out, Adunni heard the bell ring. It was Femi, looking nervous. He went straight to the kitchen where Madame Damilola was waiting. Adunni returned to the living room, but she could still hear their hushed conversation. "Did he say anything?" Madame Damilola asked, her voice now soft. "He left a note saying he would fire you." "Madame, he was so angry," Femi said. "What should I do?" Madame Damilola squeezed his hand. "Don't worry. He has a hot temper, but it cools down quickly. Just apologize and it will be over. She smiled and pulled a wad of cash from her bag. Take this. It's extra. I can't let him suspect anything. Femi's face relaxed as he took the money. He thanked her quietly and left a few minutes later, looking much calmer. Adunni watched it all, her eyes seeing what her employers believed was invincible. Madame Damilola had one face for her husband and had another for the driver Femi, and Adunni saw both. She continued her work, a silent collector. The secrets were no longer just observations, they were tangible proof. The note, the earring, the photo, each piece confirmed the lies the household was built on. Adunni didn't know why she was collecting them, but she felt a strange sense of power. The invincible woman was finally in control. Adunni's quiet anger began to grow. The constant petty humiliations from Madame Damilola felt less like the demands of a wealthy woman and more like the hypocritical actions of a fraud. Adunni decided that she was going to act. She wouldn't bring down the house with a loud crash, but with a precise, quiet unraveling. One morning, while tidying Madame Damilola's bedroom, Adunni took the old gold earring she had found in the study. She walked to the dressing table and placed it where it would easily be noticed, right beside Madame Damilola's own jewelry box. And later that afternoon, from the kitchen, Adunni heard a shriek from upstairs. "Who is this for?" Madame Damilola yelled. Mr. Oladele's voice, calm at first, answered from another room. "What's the matter, Damilola?" This, Madame Damilola's heavy footsteps came down the stairs. "This earring, I found it in my dressing table. Whose is it? Oladele, are you keeping secrets?" Adunni heard Mr. Oladele's calm tone drop. I don't know anything about this earring." "Don't lie to me." Madame Damilola's voice became shrill. "It's a woman's earring, and it's not mine. Do you bring women into my house?" Adunni bit back a smile as she scrubbed the sink. The argument escalated, and the words became sharper. Adunni knew the damage had been done. The next morning, the nagging began again. At the breakfast table, Adunni placed a plate of scrambled eggs in front of Madame Damilola, who was on her phone. And without looking up, Madame prodded the eggs with her fork. "Adunni!" she snapped. "What is this? The eggs are swimming in oil. Did I not say no oil?" Adunni's shoulders slumped. "Madame, I used only a little." "Do not argue with me." Madame Damilola's voice rose. "Is your brain made of stone? Take it away and make a new one." Adunni's hands trembled as she scraped the good eggs into the bin. Later, while hanging laundry, Madame Damilola came outside holding a silk scarf. "This scarf," holding it up as if it were worthless, "it cost me more than your family earns in a year. And look at it. You've ruined it. The colors are dull. You people never know how to take care of fine things." She dropped the scarf on the floor and turned away. Adunni picked it up and hung it back on the line, her face impassive. The final blow came when Madame Damilola returned from a shopping trip. Adunni had spent hours cleaning the sitting room, and Madame Damilola walked in, ran her finger along a picture frame, and held up a dusty finger. "What is this, Adunni? I leave you for 2 hours and you can't even dust properly. Look, you are lazy, careless, and if you do not do this simple work, I will find someone else who can." Adunni simply bowed her head. She knew there was no point arguing. The accusations were not about dust or eggs, they were about control. Every insult added more kindling to the Adunni's quiet resolve. Later that evening, Adunni was in the kitchen when she saw Mr. Oladele's car pull into the driveway, a day earlier than expected. Weeks earlier, Adunni had hidden a small camera in a vase of flowers in the master bedroom, hoping to use the footage of their affair as leverage. Her quiet anger had fueled her decision. She heard Mr. Oladele's heavy footsteps in the hallway. He wasn't trying to be quiet. Adunni then held her breath as he walked past the kitchen door. He was heading straight for the bedroom. Adunni heard a sudden gasp from Madame Damilola. Then a shout from Femi. Mr. Oladele's angry roar was followed by a heavy thud. Then another, a quiet gurgle, and then a terrible silence. Madame Damilola's sobs grew louder, a sound of pure terror. Femi was dead, and Mr. Oladele had killed him in a fit of rage. Adunni stayed in the kitchen pretending to clean, but her ears were straining. She heard the scrape of furniture and a muffled thud as something heavy was dragged across the floor. After a terrifying hour, she heard the back door open. A car engine started quietly. Adunni then peered through a crack in the curtains and saw Mr. Oladele and Madame Damilola struggling to lift a large, dark bundle into the boot of Mr. Oladele's car. Their movements were strained and frantic. Madame Damilola's clothes were dirty, her hair a mess. Mr. Oladele was pale and sweating. Adunni had expected a loud confrontation, but not the silence. The car drove off into the night, and hours later, it returned. Mr. and Madame Oladele stumbled back into the house, exhausted and covered in mud. They did not speak. They went to separate parts of the house, leaving a trail of dirt behind them. In the days that followed, the perfect facade of the Oladele residence was gone. The house was now a tomb of secrets. Mr. and Madame Damilola rarely spoke, their arguments replaced by a cold, quiet hatred. They ate meals in complete silence and slept in separate rooms. When they passed the hallway, they looked away. The house, once filled with noise, was now eerily silent. Adunni moved through it all, a ghost once again. But this time, the quiet was her power. She cleaned and cooked, watching them slowly unravel, trapped by the secrets she held for them. Adunni was no longer just the maid. She was the silent master of their ruined home, the gatekeeper of their secrets. Her silence was not born of fear, but of absolute control. The quiet in the house felt heavy and unnatural. Adunni felt like she was in a different home, one built on a secret so dark that it had changed the very air. She needed to know for certain what had happened. That night, with the house asleep, she locked her bedroom door. She retrieved the small camera she had planted and plugged its memory card into her phone. Her hands were steady as she watched the small screen. The video was shaky and with poor lighting, but the scene was very clear. The bedroom door swung open and Mr. Oladele stormed in. His face was a mask of rage. Madame Damilola and Femi huddled by the bed. There was a violent shove, a struggle, and then vicious blows. Femi fell, hitting the ground with a sickening thud, but he didn't move. On the screen, Madame Damilola stood frozen. Mr. Oladele looked down at Femi's body, his chest heaving. Adunni watched as he stumbled out of the room, followed by Madame Damilola's quiet sobs. Adunni sat in the dark, the phone screen the only light. A wave of sickness washed over her. She had expected to see an affair, a moment of weakness. She had not expected to witness a murder. The camera was no longer just a piece of blackmail. It was a proof of a man's death. She looked at the small device in her hand. It was a weapon, and she was the only one who knew she had it. She thought about the cold faces of her employers and the constant humiliation she had endured. She had to be smart and patient. She had to use this in a different way. She didn't know her next step, but all she knew was that she held power. The Oladeles had built their lives on lies, and now their existence was in Adunni's hands. Days after the murder, Madame Damilola's composure had not returned. She called Adunni to the bedroom to help her pack. As Adunni folded the dress, a small earring fell from the fabric. It was a twin to the one Adunni had planted. You stole this! You thief! I knew you people could not be trusted. You are all the same. Coming from your village with nothing, only to steal what is not yours. Will you get out of here? Adunni felt a surge of cold fury. Madame Damilola's face was twisted into a sneer of disgust. "Get out of my sight!" she snapped. "You are just like your mother and your son, all born to steal." Adunni didn't protest. She walked into the room, locked the door, and took out the camera. That afternoon, she left for the market, but instead, she went to a nearby cyber cafe. She created a new email and linked it to a cheap burner phone. Her first message went to Mr. Oladele. It was a simple one and had no subject line. "I saw what you did with Femi." She then sent a text to Madame Damilola. "I saw how you helped your husband dump his body." Adunni returned to the house, pretending nothing had happened. She heard the frantic, whispered conversations between Mr. and Madame Damilola. She heard Mr. Oladele repeatedly calling a number, his voice growing more and more agitated. At first, he accused his wife, but seeing that she also received a message, they realized someone else had seen them. Hours later, the messages escalated. A text landed on Mr. Oladele's phone with a single image, a zoomed-in photo of a police station. "I am going to the police with a picture." Mr. Oladele's face went white. He grabbed his wife's arm. "What have you done, Damilola? What is this?" "I want 10 million naira in cash. Delivered to the old bus station in Ikeja tomorrow morning. The amount full. If you don't, the police will get the picture," and more. Adunni watched them from the kitchen. The screen on Mr. Oladele's phone lit up with a new message, and this time, a video file. The grainy footage showed the master bedroom, the door swinging open, his enraged face, the struggle, and the sickening thud as Femi's body fell. The video was less than a minute long, but it was an eternity. He dropped the phone as if it had burned him. "The video! They have the video!" Their eyes met in a single moment of horrifying realization. There was only one person who could do this. They ran to Adunni's small room off the kitchen. The door was unlocked. The room was empty. The small bed was stripped bare. The window was open, and her clothes were gone. In a fit of panic, Mr. Oladele grabbed his phone and called the number Adunni had given him. It was switched off. A new message came through. "You have seen the proof. I want 50 million naira. In a single anonymous bank transfer. I will send you the account number." There was no negotiation, and within hours, the transfer was made from an anonymous offshore account. Mr. and Madame Damilola sat in their living room, staring at the screen that had delivered their fate. Meanwhile, Adunni was in a new city. She was in a quiet apartment in Abuja, watching the transfer notification pop up on a small new phone. She saw the money, and with a cold calm, she deleted the messages. Her job was done. A week later, they received one more message. "I want another 5 million naira. This is for my silence. Send it to the same account. It is the last one." They sent it without a word. They were terrified of her. The money was a task on their life, a constant reminder of what they had done and who was holding the proof. Adunni deleted the last message. She had what she needed. After all, the money would take care of her family for a long time. She walked to a cyber cafe, logged into her encrypted storage account, and deleted the video file, the pictures, and all of the messages. She was not a monster. She was only a survivor. She had given the Oladeles a chance to buy their freedom and live a life without public shame. The Oladele residence became a tomb. Mr. and Mrs. Damilola lived in silent terror, bound by a terrible secret and the ghost of a housemaid they would never see again. They lived in fear, never knowing when she might strike. Well, what would you have done if you were Adunni? Would you keep the secrets or would you use them? Share your thoughts below and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with family and friends.